you able to, are you still on?
Jumping back into it, I'm going to do roll. So please say here if you're here. Her Oliver, Carrie, I know you're here. John, here. Awesome. Mary Brandon, thank you. Shane Butler, here. Tracy Chago, here. Mary Dewey, here. Robert Jeffrey, here. Elizabeth Lefebvre. No. She's not here. Okay. Peggy Lepreski, Alicia O'Neill, Scott Ryan, George Senek. No for George. Okay. Patsy Smith, Adrian Zorna, Jamie Mullen, and John Massey. And we do have Julie Sweet here. Thank you, Julie. I don't think nobody else from the state is here. Is that correct? They may be joining us online. And then again, I'm Jeanette Petty from Bergman on the consultant team, and we have some subs as well joining us online, I believe. Okay, jumping into it, project status. All right, updates. The community survey. I think I checked this morning and we had about 140 responses, which is great. Thank you to the public for participating, and thank you to the LPC for pushing it out there. That survey is open until May 20th. So at the next LPC meeting, we will be providing a summary of the responses, and we'll share that with you. Proposed project updates. So since the last LPC meeting, our team has spent the bulk the last month going through and refining cost estimates that were submitted as part of the initial project applications, making sure that the
Trying to make sense of those. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so we have spent the bulk of the last month going through and refining cost estimates. Sam and I and one of our architects visited Norwich. We did a site visit. We went to a couple of buildings, and we are refining cost estimates so that they're consistent with industry standards, unit costs, stuff like that. And we'll be presenting any changes to the project cost estimates at this meeting, and also any scope changes that may have resulted from those changes in costs. And then lastly, reminder that the second public workshop is immediately following this meeting at 6:30. Okay, so what we're going to do today, like I said, we're going to review any changes in cost estimates, any changes in scope that resulted from that. And then we've also invited project sponsors here today. Some of them are sitting in the back to discuss their projects and give you a little bit more detail than we can provide you in a single slide. So this is a great opportunity for you as the LPC to talk directly to them. Each project sponsor that will be talking will have a 3-minute allotment. After that, we're going to give the LPC a total of maybe 2 to 3 minutes for each project to ask questions of the project sponsor. And I'm going to emphasize, one, it's 2 to 3 minutes, and secondly, please just ask questions. Use this time to get more information from the project sponsor. Don't use this time for commentary. Don't just say, I like this, I don't like this. Please ask questions. Okay. And then lastly, this LPC meeting will be a little bit different from the last two. We're not going to go through and vote on every single project after we talk about them. Again, this is about talking about changes in cost and scope. However, if there are any projects that we can unanimously agree on as an LPC that we don't want to move forward with, and we want to remove from consideration, please make us aware of that now, so that we as a consultant team are not putting resources into developing projects that we know aren't going to move forward further. So I'll just leave that out there. If anyone wants to bring it up throughout the meeting, that maybe this project shouldn't move any forward, shouldn't move forward any further, please let us know. Okay, and then Lastly, the fun part of this meeting is our, yes, sorry.
This way.
Yeah. I will, yeah, okay. This is a learning experience with the microphone. Okay, thank you. So the last part of this meeting will be a $10 million prioritization exercise where we're gonna give you $10 million and you're gonna basically spend that money on the projects that you prefer, whatever you think is most favorable, whatever you think will benefit Norwich the most. The public at the community meeting is gonna do the exact same thing as you after this. And so what we're gonna do is take those results and use that to kind of figure out what are the priority projects, what do we think is best for Norwich, and then also to see which projects maybe are falling to the bottom of the list. We'll use that information at the next LPC meeting to really start making those cuts, right? Because right now we're at about $22 million in DRI funding requests. We gotta get down to 12 to 15, 12 to $16 million, right? So that's about $8 million that needs to be cut. I'm getting a little static. So just a reminder that when we're voting, when we're talking about projects, we do need to start cutting. That will really start happening probably at the next meeting, but just keep it in the back of your mind for this meeting as well. Okay, proposed projects. You've seen these all before, so I'm going to run through them very quickly. But here's a reminder of the evaluation criteria, alignment with DRI goals. Does it make sense for Norwich and what we want for downtown Norwich? Catalytic effect. Does it spur additional investment? Project readiness. Is this project more than an idea at this point? And can it be completed in a timely manner? Cost effectiveness. Is the cost estimate realistic and feasible? Our team has really gone through and addressed that. So yes, these cost estimates should be very realistic at this point. But from your perspective as an LPC, do you want to spend $3 million on a big project, or do you want to spend maybe lower amounts on more smaller projects? You can consider that as well. Capacity, can the project sponsors effectively carry out this project? And then lastly, community benefits. Does this project bring more to Norwich than simply benefiting the project sponsor? So you as an LPC, I think, should focus on alignment with DRI goals, catalytic effect, and then community benefits, because our team has really gone through and looked at cost effectiveness. We've made sure these cost estimates are realistic, and then we'll work to make sure project sponsors have the capacity and that the project is ready to move forward in the future if it does get funded. Okay. I'm sorry, that's really light at the top there, but where we are today, there are 23 remaining projects after the last LPC meeting. Right now, that's a total of about $22 million in DRI funding request, which has gone up from the previous meeting where we were at about $21.8 million. And again, that's because we went through and we refined cost estimates. And you'll see as we go through this that some of those costs have increased. Again, a reminder, we're trying to get down to between 12 and 15 and 12 and $16 million for when we submit the strategic investment plan to the state at the end of this summer. Okay, I'm going to do the public improvement projects. There are 7 of those remaining for consideration, and that's a total of $9 million in DRI funding requests. Okay, so the downtown parking, public parking lot improvements. You can see here that we've broken this down now by parking lot. So each lot has a cost associated with it, and that's kind of how this project can move forward. Do you want one lot? Do you want multiple lots? If you were to go forward with improving all the lots, and that includes repaving, restriping, landscaping, lighting, a couple EV charging stations. If you did that in all the lots, that would be a total of $3 million, right? But you don't necessarily have to do that. You as an LPC can decide where the priority lots are, or if it's 1 or 2 lots in separate areas, we can move forward like that as well. Next project, American Avenue enhancements. How this project has changed since the last meeting is that the cost has actually been refined down from about $600,000 to roughly $500,000. Again, this is the project that creates a pedestrian-only street and outdoor dining space, flexible space on American Avenue from Broad Street to Colonial Place. We did do a couple renderings of what this might look like. You can see your tables and chairs outside, maybe a mural, some lighting, kind of a unique public space in Norwich. And I know, Mayor, I'm going to give you an opportunity. The Traffic Commission did discuss this recently. Do you want to provide any
Sure.
input from that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we met last night, traffic commission. I asked them just to look at the traffic and they actually like the idea. They said they felt it's feasible to do it this way. Discussion. It's a detail in the future, but it's going to be sad. It's set.
Great, thank you for the update. All right, Main Street enhancements. Okay, so how this project has changed is that we've broken out the project cost into two separate options. One, the first one, the more expensive one, being $1.2 million. This includes concrete sidewalk replacement. The second option, option two, $550,000, does not include sidewalk replacement. Both options, however, include other streetscape enhancements, including benches, planters, pedestrian lighting, trash receptacles, bike racks, charging stations. So again, the difference between the two is one, the top one, the first one included sidewalk replacement, and the other does not. I know there was some discussion previously about whether or not it was worth it to include sidewalk replacements in any of the street enhancement projects. Broad Street enhancements. I am going to skip this one for 1 second and I'll come back to it. You'll see why in a second. It isn't possible to get rid of that. I will slow down for those of you on Zoom. Okay, so we're gonna start with North Broad Street enhancements. This project is new. You have not seen this one before. It was initially wrapped into the larger Broad Street enhancements project. So what we've done is separated Broad Street essentially into two projects. This North Broad Street enhancement project runs from Rexford to Mitchell, which is, I would say, the northern fourth of the DRI area, closest to the museum district. This project is sponsored by Friends of the Museum District, and they would move forward with this project. The cost is $615,000. It includes traditional streetscaping enhancements, upgraded sidewalks, lighting, benches, trash receptacles, landscaping, and signage. And then I'm going to go back a slide now. We'll see how the North Broad Street Enhancements Project relates to the Broad Street Enhancements Project, which is a city-sponsored project. So this project, Broad Street Enhancements, would run from Mitchell down, Mitchell down to Conkey Avenue, which is most of the rest of the southern portion of the DRI. This project, again, like the Main Street project, has two options. The top option, option one, $1.5 million, includes sidewalk replacement. However, the sidewalk replacement would only be from Portland Street to Hayes Street, which is not the entirety of the southern portion of Broad Street, but it is in the core, right in the core of the DRI area. So from Hayes down to the southern tip of the DRI area, those sidewalks would remain as they are. However, from Portland to Hayes, it would be replaced if we were to go with option one. Option two does not include sidewalk replacement, so all sidewalks on Broad, south of Portland would remain as they are today. Again, both options do include the traditional slate of streetscape enhancements, sidewalks, benches, planters, pedestrian lighting, EV charging stations. I'm going to go back to the North Broad Street Enhancements Project. This is a Friends of the Museum sponsored project, so I'm going to give Eric from Friends of the Museum an option to really discuss this project. And I think he's joining us through Zoom. So Eric,
Hi, everybody.
thank you, Eric.
Hopefully
We
you
can
can-
hear you.
Okay, great. Hope you can hear me okay. The Museum District project obviously is an extension of our earlier projects. Phase 1A, which most of you have probably seen, has been completed. We actually just opened bids on our Phase 1B this week, and that should be completed this summer. And what we are proposing here is that we connect those improvements to our existing streetscape improvements downtown. Of course, this was identified as a prime goal of our DRI application to improve the connectivity between downtown and the museum district so that each can kind of support and feed off the other. Obviously, right now, we're a little disconnected from the downtown, and this would be our prime goal to cure that. The improvements, as you can see, pretty straightforward. It's a continuation of the exact kind of improvements that we've made. Our first phase will be continuing to make in our Phase 1B this summer. An investment here by the DRI just builds on a significant amount of investment that we've already gotten from the community. So we obviously have demonstrated a lot of public commitment to this already. And in terms of meeting some of the DRI program goals, our team has demonstrated that we can get this done. We have the plans ready to go. We've already developed them. We've already implemented a good section of them. And I think, the successful joining of the museum district and downtown just helps the largest year-round tourism draw we have. So more activity downtown and bring more activity from downtown up to that. I would also point out that this program has successfully led to a curb appeal program funded by local foundations that is giving grants to homeowners now in an expanded footprint of the museum district to improve the facades of their homes. It helps out the homeowners, it helps out our district, it helps out our city. Continue the success we had last year. More than quadrupled the funds available this year. And I think that we would continue to see more support for expanding this program throughout the continuation of the district and beyond the district into the future. So leveraging a lot of community resources, leading to a lot of redevelopment along in the corridor and hopefully beyond. So that's my spiel.
Great, thank you, Eric. So LPC members, if you have questions for Eric, please use the microphones on the table now to ask those. We'll give 2 to 3 minutes. And if nobody has any questions, that's okay. We can move on. No questions from the LPC? Okay. We'll hold public comments until later. All right, great. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Okay. The park improvements project, how this project has changed. The cost estimate has increased. That is because the scope of this project has been expanded. I'll show you in the next slide, but just as a reminder, this is improvements to East, West, and Guernsey, which is the library park. Includes things like a new pavilion, an outdoor movie viewing space, electric and water hookups, all to support additional programming at the parks. Okay. So additions to scope. The former Park Plaza project, which was a standalone project in the Frontier Communications lot, has now been included in the scope of the park improvements project. It has also been moved, the location has been moved from the Frontier Communications lot to the parking space on East Park Plaza, which is immediately north of East Park. There is a sketch up on the screen. So what we're proposing as part of this new Park Plaza would be to change the way that the parking spots are striped. Right now, immediately north of the park, the parking spaces are angled, and then on the opposite side of Park Place, they're parallel. So what we're proposing is to switch it so that the parallel parking spaces are now immediately north of the park, adjacent to the park. Potentially, you would have food trucks parked there, people could come and get lunch at the park, eat at the park. And then the angled spots would be switched to the other side of Park Place where adjacent to the businesses. And we're also proposing as part of this, when you do the restriping, that you also change the pavement treatment. So it's, brick pavers or something to indicate that this is a flexible space. It's a multi-use space. It's not just for cars anymore, pedestrians, or you may have a market there, something like that to indicate that this is a special space. Okay, so that Park Plaza has been moved, like I said, and is now in the park improvements project. Additionally, we have also included $100,000 of budget into the park improvements project to incorporate public art throughout the parks. So that is how the park improvements project has changed. 2 additions in scope, Park Plaza and public art allocation, which brings us back to a total project cost of roughly $1.7 million. And the DRI funding request is a little bit less than that, $25,000 less than that. Okay, I'm going to throw it back to Eric to speak about this project again.
Okay. Thank you again. This plan, of course, builds on the success we've had in the park over the years. What we wanted to do is to identify where we had gaps in our existing setup, our experience over the years using the park improvements that we have now. Wanted to see how we could build on the success we've been able to have, and also how we could introduce more new events and perhaps accommodate smaller and upcoming events so that they could hopefully grow into bigger events. So starting, I guess, from the west, the first thing we did, sat down with the library. We do some movies in the park. They do some movies in the park there, and the smaller program. The area they use to do it, their west patio, is badly deteriorated and not really suitable for what they were doing, and certainly not as professional presentation as they would like. So we're proposing that we would completely rebuild that so that there's now a performance space with a covered roof, a movie screen. We also proposed in the Guernsey Park in the west open knoll, they would like to have a pavilion that could also house outdoor events, children's programming, family program. Could also be a picnic area. It's right next to the existing children's play area. We thought this would be a great enhancement, a great family-oriented area, throughout that entire park. It's kind of a hidden gem. It gets used, but we think it could be used even more. Moving into West Park, we wanted to add a water service because we don't have one, and that is another thing that would help events. We talked to the Business Improvement District. They'd love to see more outlets for things like the farmers market to make it easier to set up the Christmas lights and the trees, basically to support any manner of events that go on there. We find ourselves without quite enough electric hookups, and not where events have found that they would be helpful to have. We talk about adding some EV charging stations. I see them in many plans, so we can all sort out how that works best. But we thought right in the middle of town, where they'd be visible to people passing through and available to people at events, would be very helpful. We want to add stairs to the rear of the existing stage in East Park. And speaking to the production people that help set up events, that would make things much easier for them. And as we do bigger events, more of a need there to get on and off the stage multiple times with lots of equipment. We also are proposing a sound system throughout downtown. Our existing, sadly outdated. This one would be wireless and have better fidelity and cover a bigger footprint of downtown. That would assist all events, from parades to special events in the park and holiday music and whatever we're doing down there. Obviously, Samantha and her team came to us with the idea of extending the food truck idea. We had proposed some new hookups, but they suggested that because it was problematic to think about a larger space, as I guess you already heard, in the Frontier lot, that it actually made more sense to get right next to the park, where it would benefit special events and be able to be a, special event in its own right. And so they've worked up a plan for that, which we thought was a terrific idea. It'll help us, it'll help everybody, and it's a little cheaper than doing it at an alternate location. And of course, in order to meet the need that had been identified for some public art, we did come up with some suggestions for a few locations for sculptural elements that we thought would be nice. In total, we think it's going to generate a lot of economic activity. If we look at the criteria, you talk about create an active and desirable downtown, provide amenities that enhance downtown living and quality of life, create public spaces to serve local residents and attract tourism. We feel like we're pretty much driving right straight down the middle of that road. Demonstrated benefit to the community already, and this is just a way to build on that. Of course, we have the team in place that's done it before, so we feel confident that we have a track record and that we'd be able to implement this. Our preliminary plans are developed. We could be ready to go in 2023, and we think it's a plan that serves local residents, visitors, and generates business activity.
Thank you, Eric. LPC, any questions for Eric? John, can you use the microphone?
So just to be clear, because there's a lot to this project, we could, as an LPC, pick and choose what we want to fund. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, you can decide the scope. If the project, if the project is amenable to that as well. Okay, any other question, Adrian?
So behind East Park Stage, that would just be normal, and you would only be things that changes across from Park Place.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so to the east of East Park would remain as it is today. The only changes would be to the north of East Park.
Okay, so it could still be regular traffic through there. It's just
Oh, yes.
the pavement would be different.
That's correct. Yes, that's a good point. Yes, I should should clarify that the traffic pattern will remain the same regardless. You could still drive through there. I think just having a unique pavement treatment could indicate that during those special events, when we have food trucks, when we have, a market set up, that, hey, this is a different space. If you're a car, you should recognize that there may be pedestrians walking through. The traffic pattern, however, would remain the same. You would still drive all the way through.
Outside of those normal events, it would be the same
Yep,
traffic pattern.
Exactly,
Okay,
correct. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thanks again, Eric.
Sure.
Okay, this is the last public improvement project, the YMCA beautification project. Nothing has changed in cost or scope since the last LPC meeting, still at roughly $650,000. Again, the improvements would be a pocket park at the corner here, upgrades to the generator, and then streetscape improvements along Broad Street and Mechanic Street. Again, if the Broad Street streetscape project gets funded, those enhancements on Broad Street would come out of this project, so we're not replicating that. I think the only thing that changed on this slide is that the picture is not blurry this time, so you can see it better. JD, do you have anything else you wanted to say? I know you briefly discussed this, but I'll give you the opportunity now.
Yeah, basically, we had the Broad Street, Mechanic Street sidewalk improvements, the little pocket plaza. I know it's not showing up there, but we're trying to incorporate some of the public art. And we don't have great signage for the facility. Even though the sign ordinance is a little challenging in downtown for business improvement. But we were thinking a sculpture that had the kids doing the YMCA on the corner could provide public art, but also signage for our facility at the same time. The YMCA in Estes Park, Colorado, had that sculpture on display, and we kind of got that idea from there. There was also page 2 of this, also was upgrades to the backside of Mitchell Street, which is in the backside of our property with sidewalks, plantings, and screening very similar that would mimic the front. And then part 2 of the application was a generator. So the YMCA could be used or could continue to be used as a shelter or evacuation center, as we continue to be a evacuation for Schenectady Memorial Hospital, Valley View Nursing Home, and Norwich Rehab, in case they have an issue at their facility. So at least we had a generator, we can keep the facility going at all times. So, thank you.
And LPC, any further questions on this project? No? Okay, great. I'm gonna pass it off to Sam to do the development and rehabilitation projects.
How's everyone doing? All right, so I'm gonna come on this side, and we're gonna talk about the new development and rehabilitation projects that are on the ballot as part of the DRI. Still the same number of projects that we had at the last meeting, 14 proposed projects. The estimated project cost for total project cost and DRI request has changed a little bit, but is approximately $12 million. So we'll talk about those changes now. So the first project is the downtown Norwich Boutique Hotel. So this project, in terms of scope, has remained the same. So really includes the rehabilitation of 14 to 16 South Broad Street and into a 45-unit boutique hotel. This cost estimate also includes some renovated changes to the city-owned Hayes Street parking lot, basically with enhanced lighting and seating, repaving, restriping, as well as basically the alleyways that connect to each of the Broad Street and Main Street. So really enhancing those existing alleyways. Right now, they are currently very dark and very unwelcoming. There's graffiti on the wall. So really cleaning up that space as it exists today, adding enhanced lighting, as well as seating and outside dining opportunities in preparation for a hotel and restaurant that will be part of that hotel as well. So as of right now, the total project cost did increase a little bit to include improvements to those alleyways to East Main Street, West Main Street and South Broad Street. So $8.4 million is the total project cost and about $3.3 million in DRI requests, which is 40%. So I do see Dan and Mike O'Reilly in the back. I don't know if you wanted to come up and say a few words about your project. We do have the podium here, so it has a microphone and you're welcome to address the LPC.
I think Sam answered most of the questions, but so this is a project, this is a project that goes back to 2016, lifelong residents in Norwich. You kind of realize you've been in depression and you need to figure out what's going on. And you look around and you say, it can't be done, maybe I need to try and figure out how it can happen. So this is something we can't just going back to 17, call investors, call friends, and get interest. And it's evolved into what you see today. And I think we look at, when we pitch this over the last 5 years, 6 years, we always tell people you look at what Norwich has going for it, and it's primarily the jobs. We have really good employers, high-paying jobs, and we need to figure out how to not only retain them, but to bolster them for the future. And for us, this is a critical project for Norwich in order to continue to evolve and to move into the future. We have financing pretty much figured out with the local bank. We have another grant. Our partner on it is a hotel operator. We have a management company. Sam briefly talked about the parking lot. Going back to 17, we went to several meetings with the city and have a resolution in place for about $25 to reconfigure that lot. And what we did just reconfiguring the lot was we picked up 71 spots. So at the time we were pitching a 65-room hotel. Flags want typically 1 spot per room, so we were pitching 71 spots plus the 70 that existed. So by redeveloping the parking lot, we ended up with 140. So part of this project is to also find other ways to expand the parking lot more. I think that's a critical thing for everybody is parking. So we've spent a lot of time figuring out parking.
I think the biggest thing for a lot of people to understand is our product fits an area that is underserved right now, which is the premium product of Norwich. Mike and I had numerous meetings with lots of local corporations. This single-handedly is their biggest point in Norwich and the biggest need. Our hope by fulfilling this need is to also help local organizations, local events like Gus Macker, Who's Fest, Rolling Into This Car Show, expand to local events in the city. So our product is premium, not only to compete, but to offer a high-end product in the city.
Thank you, guys. Are there any questions from the LPC to Dan and Mike regarding their hotel project? We'll address public comments at the end. Okay, no questions? Great. Thank you. Okay. The next project is the Makerspace and Theater upgrades to the Shenango Arts Council building. So this is on 27 West Main Street and is a project that is sponsored by the Shenango Arts Council. So their scope as of right now includes a few elements, some of which include basically a maker space to appeal to artists and entrepreneurs. So Alicia imagines the space being outfitted with equipment, printing equipment and other equipment to help artists and entrepreneurs in their business. It also includes the development of a traveling residence. So this would be like a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom residence that traveling artists can utilize as they are traveling around town if they need the space to stay overnight or a week, but for a very short amount of time. It also includes the development of a dark room and art and dance studio. And then the largest part of the cost estimate here includes electrical and sound upgrades to the existing theater that is in that building. So as of right now, the total project cost is approximately $1 million at $990,000. And the Shenango Arts Council is requesting 100% of that total project cost. And they are able to do that because they are a nonprofit agency. Alicia, anything that you would like to say? Are there any questions from the LPC regarding this project? Okay, the next project is the Norwich Center Accessibility Improvements Project. So this project is in the same building as the Shenango Arts Council proposed project, but really is sponsored by the Shenango Housing Improvement Program. And their improvements include the installation of an ADA accessible elevator that will travel to all 3 floors within the building, as well as an ADA accessible entrance to the front door that you see in the lower part of that photo, as well as exterior improvements, so replacing the doors. It includes facade lighting, the replacement of the existing sign that is outside of the front of that building as well. And then in addition to this project, we also added an opportunity for a public art mural on basically this, it would be the west wall of the building as well. So the design of that public art mural has not been agreed upon or drawn up or anything, but we do have some money in there to create the design for that public art mural and install it. So the total project cost and the DRI funding request is $925,000. Any questions regarding this project? Okay, so we have the Downtown Visitor Center and Entrepreneur Space. So just a reminder, this is sponsored by the Development Shenango Corporation and would be the renovation of the first floor of 15 South Broad Street. So the existing space for Commerce Shenango, really outfitting the front of this building to basically include a vestibule, to house brochures and a digital kiosk at the front of that building to really help downtown visitors or other tourists that are in the area help find their way, help identify specific venues that they would like to travel to and things like that. And then in addition to that, there's also outfitting the back office space to create more of a co-working space for entrepreneurs that need to use office space for, a space for the local business community. So at the last meeting, we did not have a total project cost for this. And so our team has looked at this at a high level and determined that it would cost approximately $300,000 to implement these improvements. So that is the total project cost, and 100% of that is requested through the DRI. Are there any questions regarding this project? You guys are busy tonight. Maybe it's the heat making everyone tired. Okay, the next project is the rehabilitation of 13 to 15 South Broad Street. So this is the renovation of the upper stories of this building to develop a mix of 10 to 11 mix of apartments as well as executive stay units. This project also includes the conversion of the existing freight elevator in the building to a passenger elevator to travel to those upper floors for residents that would be living there in that space. So this total project cost has increased the last time we met. Our team did take a look at these estimates and determined that, just a little bit more contingency was needed just in the climate of today's inflation, construction costs, labor, as well as the bidding requirements that are part of the state's contracting requirements. So the new total project cost for this is $1,060,000 with a DRI funding request of $530,000. So this project is also sponsored by Chris Hayes. So Chris, I don't know if you wanted to come up and speak for a few minutes. Great. Since they just try to speak into the microphone.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I know a lot of you, but there's also a lot of new faces here that I don't recognize. I'm Chris Hayes. I've been a Norwich resident and business owner since 1989. I lived downtown in a refurbished building since 2007 and raised my family there, so I kind of get to know the downtown scene. Folks, also owner in a total of 4 buildings in the DRI boundary. I'm a big proponent of these public-private collaborations because without them, these projects aren't going to be done. So thanks for putting the program out. I'm presenting on 2 projects today. This one, I guess, I was going to do both at the same time, but the slide's not up there, so I will focus on 1315 South Broad Street, which is on the screen. It is home to the, and I'm not the only owner. Actually, I'm here on behalf of my owner group, which includes my wife, my brother Mike in the back, and business partner Adam Bosworth. Really motivated to get this project done because we know what we're due for not just us as entrepreneurs, but for the community. The first floor house is Commerce Shenango. The other key tenant is the big door. We've got second floor tenants that include financial services, a CPA, a dance/exercise business. that only accounts for about 40% of the space. It's so 60% of it I'm sorry, 40% is undeveloped. The second floor is also currently powered by a rooftop solar system. Third floor houses one furnished apartment. 33, but that only counts for 33% of that space being used. All 3 floors are serviced by a freight elevator, but it is not suited for pedestrian use or traffic, so that needs to be reworked. In all, we've got about 12,000 square feet of 20,000 square feet that needs project attention. What we'll be doing is adding living units. There's 2 there now that need renovation. We want to add approximately 8 additional new housing units to the second and third floor. So first floor will remain commercial and retail. Second and third floor will be converted to all residential. Project will include elevator upgrades and some exterior building improvements. So why consider our project? There's a lot of good projects out there. We feel that our project is a great match from an eligibility standpoint, and that it also will do well when you start looking at the evaluation criteria. The project is in the DRI boundary. The project is ready to move forward within a year. It's a redevelopment and a rehab project, so it meets that cited DRI goal. Our project will attract residents, professionals, tourists, students, not only to visit downtown, but to perhaps live there. Those that choose that lifestyle are going to find out what we found out, which is it's a very efficient way to live. It's very cost effective. It's pedestrian lifestyle. It really is going to be offers a much smaller carbon footprint as well.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone have any questions for Chris regarding his proposed project?
Chris, in terms of financing, you said this project is ready to move forward in a year, so you have proposed financing in mind in order to do that?
What we have is willing lenders, both local banks and private lending, that are very willing to work with us, contingent on a DRA grant, of course. And, you know, we've done these projects before. We've got a lot of units currently under management, and we've got a local track record, so securing lending will not be an issue for us.
Hey, Chris, another question. Looks like you're looking at 10 to 11 potential apartments. You know, we've heard the need for housing and apartments and so on. With your studies, do you feel that 10 and 11 apartments would be able to fill those and meet that need?
Based on our current business model, we have another 10 in the DRI that are already in place in other buildings, and we don't have any difficulty keeping those full. I would say 90% occupancy.
Thank you.
I'll just stop. Is it are they apartments or Airbnb or both?
Yes.
Like, do you have?
Housing like everything else in this world is evolving. And it's a mobile economy. Our apartments are suited for short-term stays. They are furnished, but we will entertain long-term tenants as well. Our sweet spot is kind of the executive stay market. Our average stay for those people is about 5 months. We do have some short tourist weekend stays, but the rules have changed. Where people work, as you know, it's a mobile economy, and wherever your smartphone is where you can work. People figure that out, so they're moving all over the place. So we'll work with anybody.
Thank you. And don't go too far, because I have your next project right after this. Okay. Oh, I lied. Well, we'll do this since you're up here. So the next project is 10 South Broad Street. And so this is the renovation of the first floor, or excuse me. Yeah, no, the second floor. Yes, that is written incorrectly. I'm sorry about that. It's just some electrical. I'll let you explain the
Yes, we recognize this building as the former ice cream building, leather shop. Hershey's Clothing was there for years, and now it houses Serenity Hobbies, which is an interactive gaming retail and experiential business, a nice solid retail business, not a very typical. So they're kind of our anchor tenant on the first floor. Second floor is a gutted 1,600 square foot space that is well suited for residential, and that is the scope of the project. There is an elevator in the building that serves that space. It needs upgrades. So major scope is adding 2 quality apartments and giving elevator access. The first floor retail space needs upgraded electric, HV, AC. That's about it. So again, this is very similar to the other project. It's only 2 residential units, but it has the same impact. Day one, people move in, those people will be living downtown and will be spending downtown. So between this building and our other, that's 10 new units, that's 10 to 20 new people living in town, moving around the city on a daily basis, spending every day. So the economic impact is real to the local businesses that exist. That increased traffic will attract new business owners, and the city will benefit with some increased sales tax revenue as well. And I guess the other thing that I want to talk about is we're pretty well qualified to do this project. We've done it before. It's this one or the one across the street. Our drawings are done, we're ready to roll in a year. As I said before, Mike and Adam have 60 plus commercial residential units under management now. Missy and I have another 25, so we kind of know what we're doing. We've completed successful Main Street grants in the past. We have existing businesses and employees in the DRI boundary, and we're bankable with both traditional and private lending sources. So we'd like to put all that together and demonstrate how we can put a transformational project together for you that's truly win-win, not just for us as entrepreneurs and capitalists, but again, the city and the taxpayer wins because day one, those new units create new traffic, which creates economic activity.
Thank you so much, Chris. Any questions for Chris?
I can talk loud. Hey, Chris, I just wanted to confirm because you mentioned elevator improvements, but I don't see it listed in the scope. So that dollar amount, correct? Or with the elevator?
Correct.
Okay, so we just got to update the elevator. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so the next project is the rehabilitation of the Heritage Building. So there has been some work done in this building, including the renovation of the upper stories into residential units. But this project specifically includes the rehabilitation of the first floor into both a brewery and a local market. The restoration of the second floor mezzanine, and then some energy efficiency projects, including the installation of rooftop solar panels and an EV charging station in their parking lot. This is basically the cost estimate is a total project cost of $730,000 with a request of $365,000. This is sponsored by Sharon Pelosi and her husband Scott. Sharon or Scott, would you like to come up and say a few words? Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Okay, thank you. So I'm Sharon Pelosi, and Scott. We together have a property management business, Northwest Properties. Spent since 20 years renovating properties together, and we really made it our life's work to make Norwich a better place specifically. This project is a long time in the making. started this back in 2012 when the city showed us the building and talked to us about purchasing it. We planned the upper unit renovations to be integrated with the ground floor uses. We have 6 apartments upstairs now, high end. They were funded through a Main Street grant as well as a WARP grant and some tier economic development. Very successful development project. We have historic tax credit preservation credits that we've earned for this building. And we've made it our priority to really preserve the historic architectural integrity of the building. So our project before you is the ground floor spaces. And really it's the first floor on the right side of the picture we're looking at with the red storefront, and first and second floors on the other side. The first floor on the right would be a regional market, commercial kitchen, and on the other side would be the Norwich Brewing Company. Second floor would be a game room and a lodge room for private meeting space. And the first floor is, I don't know if anybody's been in the building or remembers it from when it was the furniture building, but it's a beautiful space, very high ceilings. Spectacular space when you walk into it, pristine ceilings, mezzanine. So our vision is to put the blue tanks on the mezzanine so that we view for windows and have a stage area for entertainment and the brewery area as well as a tasting bar, small retail space, and a commercial kitchen to support the brewery customers as well as the market customers.
Well, the main Norwich Brewing Company is a historic maker in Norwich. Assume that it may so Roman region, hospital. We actually acquired property rights back in 2015. The last time Norwich Brewing Company was 1915.
Just gonna give you like 30 more seconds, Scott.
Okay.
Sorry.
And this is the 11th project that we've done. As opposed to the time that it takes to get this project, I'm actually very glad that we COVID. We learned a lot of lessons before that. We're not even talking here today. What we need to move forward to make this successful and transformative to downtown Norwich. Really, this area of Norwich in particular needs some uplifting and respect. And this is the project.
So much. Anyone have any questions for Scott and Sharon? Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna ask on elevators. What is the accessibility in that building? Are you updating anything as far as getting people?
There's no elevator planned. People that live on the 3rd floor have an installed loft and they're happy to do it. Yeah, and then inside on the ground floor, there will be an ATA ramp connecting the 2 retail spaces on the interior. So both ground floor and this will be accessible. We can't really, on the interior of the brewery side, there's a beautiful mezzanine stairway that for historic preservation reasons we can't tamper.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you.
In regards to your question, there, the building was looked at once before, and estimate to put an elevator on the backside of this building till the project. So by making this preservation, both upgrades aren't necessary, but if we're making new, all those things.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing. Okay, thank you.
So after the completion with this one, is that equal ribbon cutting?
Oh, yeah.
Ready to go?
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this has been planned, it's very integrated. The sprinkler system for the upper floors goes through the brewery spaces. Everything that was designed infrastructure-wise contemplated the ground floor uses as a market brewery
was partially funded already. It's a partially done project. From the support we previously received from Congress and, you know, we were disappointed that the last couple rounds of funding didn't come through for Norwich, so we were very excited that the DRI came through this time. And we really feel like this project is what the DRI is about. This is going to bring life to the city. It's going to bring a use for people that choose to live here, something that they can enjoy with their families. That's really the point.
Thank you so much. One more?
Yeah, so in terms of readiness, finance wise, you're looking for 50% funding, you're to move forward within what time period? To finish this project.
Start work within the 2-year period. It's private investors that we've spoken to. We start tax credits, which are significant. And I really don't have any comfort with being able to get funding as far as we. So, yeah, I mean, we're ready to go.
Just one quick question. It's more or less in regards to the EV charging stations. Do you have a pinpoint of where that's going to be located on the property? The only reason why I ask this is a lot of these projects all have that, so I just want to make sure that we're not suddenly jumping on top of it when it comes to that.
Well, that's a good question. We anticipate the EV charging as well as the solar panels. A lot of breweries are going to all electric, solar driven. But the EV stations will be on the back of the building. It can be used for vehicles of tenants upstairs and visitors. It can be used for the market too.
With that in mind, if you put an electric brewery, you don't have to worry about exhaust and the gas lines coming in. Chargers for that. Solar panels on the roof. It's amazing how cost efficient it is. Almost like we had proposed for the example.
Yeah, so this is Adrian. You said you've been in property management for 20 years. I have a different readiness question. When it comes to a hospitality group to run the commercial kitchen or the restaurant portion, or a brewmaster, do you guys have those professionals lined up? Is that something you're also taking on as the two of you, or who's going to, I guess, run the ship once construction is finished?
Excellent question. Would not want to eat my cooking. So there are people going to school right now. That is the jobs that we create. We're pretty good at running the house, but next is running growing entertainment.
I think that's a great question. I have friends in the brewing industry, whether it's, and Scott and I have a pretty strong track record of making projects, whether it's renovation projects or very complex assets, and we kind of know how to put people together as a team of it. So I have all the confidence in the world that we can do this. I think having some DRI funding support would really get us to the point of breaking ground and being able to come through and
Thank you. Any last minute questions for Karen? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, so Colonial heater upgrades have not changed since the last meeting. So I don't know if there are any questions on this. Yes, oh yes, great, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. So we did include some representative images of what the project sponsor is using as inspiration for the digital marquee. So we did speak to him, and they are not planning on changing the digital marquee in terms of its structure. And I see Robert in the back there, so I'll invite him up in a second. But basically the digital marquee would only be changing the white lettering portion so that it just increases efficiency and timely communication as part of the digital marquee. So would you like to come up and say a few words?
is Todd Barnes. I'm the owner of the Columbia Theater. One of them, Brother Rich, is the other one. Right at the moment,
Can you
we
just
got
speak
it.
into the microphone?
Project sponsors, if you come up, you can just try right into the microphone.
Hear me better? My other brother would be here, but we're setting up for a comedy show tonight. So he's actually there doing that, and I got elected this week. The Columbia Theater has 3 different projects. The first one is to change the marquee, not changing the structure of it, changing so that people can see the signs better. But we're not looking to altercate the beauty of the way it is. But we want to be able to, instead of every night going out, getting on the step ladder and stepping up, to change the letters, whether it be raining, hot with the sun, or whatever the season is. Going with the digital, it helps us to, if we, the high school here is won a basketball game. It's easy for us to put it on there because we can do it with the click of the button. We looked at several different signages to go on there. We found 3 different companies. We had all of them. They ranged a lot of different ranges depending upon what we have. We've got the digital signing is going to be on 3 sides of it, just the way it is now. And right where the letters are is all that we're changing. Particular aspect. So we have a second part of this project. The second part of this project is going to be our seating. The only thing over the years that we've had any issues is we've filled the theater several times. The biggest problem we have is, well, even myself, I've got a good appetite, so we need a little more comfortable seating. So in this aspect, we're not trying to change some of the original seats that we have in the theater, but we're going to change some of the first few rows in there to accommodate different types of seating, but try to keep it as original as possible. We've got the 2 theaters downstairs. Theater 1 has all original still in there. We're taking out very minimal in there, so that every time we add a new bigger seat, it actually takes out 4 seats. We've already done the measurements, trying to make sure that we can still accommodate what's going on in the community, especially for our entertainment. So Theater 1, we're going to try to keep that as minimal as possible. Theater 2, we're going to be taking out a few more seats in there. We have the seating capacity of 259 people in there. Some of that will be coming out, but those seats will change in the 80s. So we're just making them more comfortable and trying to bring people in. Between the signage and the seats, it's approximately about $50,000. There's another additional $270,000, which in the back part of the theater, it's been vacant for years. We're looking to change this, putting 2 floors in to one to bring entertainment into our city, but the interaction with people. Looking to turn around, we've got 1 floor that we'd like to put a space in that creates the bounce houses and interactions so that we can have birthday parties and things like that in there. But also on the 2nd floor is a lot of virtual reality. A lot of this would allow moms and their kids or dads and their kids to have a interaction, but something to do with downtown. We haven't had a lot of things here in the community. I mean, don't get me wrong. The YMCA's got a lot of things to do. Different venues have different things coming in. We want to take the movie theater and change it from just a movie theater to a point of destination, but a place to go to have fun with your kids and a chance to be there all day and still walk through downtown.
Appreciate it. Any questions regarding this project?
Do they get a light use on those signage? Light use. Is it a 30-year sign or is it 2 years?
Most of them have got a 5-year warranty with them, so that we've been through.
So would you guys manage the play area and all that type of stuff? Would that be done with the movie theater or are you looking?
All done in 2 years.
Okay.
Okay, so it'll be separate from the other businesses we have.
Okay,
Yes.
and a question, so on this proposal, it said renovation of the upper stories, are you gonna take care, are you gonna get rid of the area that you recently did look at, where you have Santa Claus and stuff like that?
No.
Okay,
No, the area that you're talking about for that second floor, that's been all renovated, that right there. We actually got somebody that is starting to take that over for us. So this way here, all of our live entertainment and that is going through her, so we're looking at putting out more venues. We are, I can let you know tonight that we've got a first private meeting that is coming up, or a private event that's coming up. We're gonna do our first dinner and movie in that. Everything upstairs now, all of our third digital is all set up. Everything is ready to go up there, so we hired an event coordinator to start doing that for us. So the area we're talking about is actually behind that. So there's another, each floor out back is approximately 2,500 or 2,500 square feet. There's 2 floors there, vacant. It's a little bit run down. We did take care of already the roofs and that, so we had no issues that way. So we started to have this brought up. And this 270,000 gets us a passageway back there, gets the floors built up. The only thing we're lacking is that we would still have to come up with is all of the gaming stuff and things like that we would not put into this.
You're extending projects, what age range are you?
Actually, I'm looking for all ages because some of that turns around. I want to think like a golf simulator in there. I've got basketball and even the baseball ones, which we could interact even with the school with that off seasons, because we want to bring the events and have it interact with our different students that we already interact with, that bring in different times for different movies.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next project is the rehabilitation of the Unwood Team Building. This project has not changed since our last meeting. Adam, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Sam, if you tune into the April 25th meeting, you probably are aware that I'm going to address the capacity criteria first. There were questions raised at that meeting, fair questions, and I wasn't aware at the time that some of the supplemental information we submitted with our application was apparently not distributed to the LPC. So I'd like to talk for a moment about that. With our application, we submitted a term sheet. We have a commitment for financing from the Community Preservation Corporation for a $6.7 million bridge loan, which would then convert to a $3.7 million construction loan after the project is completed and funded through the DRI. That would leave an additional investment from project sponsors, myself and my partner, of $800,000. We stand ready to move forward on those terms. My partner was sorry he couldn't be here tonight. I think it's important to note that he is a Syracuse resident, Green boy originally, went to high school in Green, but he, my wife and I own 7 properties in the DRI, including this one. He also manages and has developed a number of projects in the Syracuse area over the past 23 years or so, including the 42-unit apartment building. We have a number of partnerships already with a number of vendors. We have secured, we're working with McKnight Associates, that's an architecture firm in Syracuse. They did these renderings, and they've done other renderings that we haven't included. Quite frankly, these were done when we were trying to shoehorn this project into eligibility for historic tax credits. And the historic tax credits, folks, they don't like you to change the windows, which is a serious problem for this building because there aren't many windows that I can see out of. Many of them are 7 feet off the ground. We are also, the estimates for construction were provided by a general contractor called Rich & Gardner. It's a firm that's handled a number of large commercial projects throughout central New York. I mentioned the funding. We also have attorneys and accountants lined up who specialize in these sorts of projects. We feel confident that we are ready to move forward. The questions about capacity are fair. This is obviously a big project. Nobody else, they're large developers have had decades to jump in on this one, and they haven't. So, of the 6 criteria, I think that's the biggest, most important for us to address tonight. There are, I think, I don't know how I'm doing on time, Samantha, but
Maybe like 4.
okay, well, good. Then I think the partnerships that I've mentioned speak to our readiness, and the fact that there are other properties within the DRI, most of which we did not apply for funding for. We view this project as sort of linchpin. If this happens, other things can happen too. But this is the crown jewel of what we hope to do. We own properties at 6 Hubbard Avenue, 20 Hubbard Avenue, McLaughlin's building, and the ownership of these buildings is overlapping. It's not identical to the ownership of this building. And of course, the building where my office is at 25 and 27 North Broad, as well as 6 West Park Place, which you may know is the former home of Alexis Dawn. So these are some of the other projects we've done, and I think this one is in close proximity to a number of other projects that are on the board. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I've said what I came to say.
Any questions for Ed? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Quick question regarding the commercial space and the retail space. Is that all going to be taking place on the first floor? How is it going to be distributed up? Because the square footage of the building is absolutely huge. So just wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure. So the top 3 floors will be residential. The first floor will be commercial / retail. My office, my firm has 2 attorneys and 7 employees. We will relocate there. We have some other rather tentative plans. We don't have any committed tenants for those spaces, although we have plans for a common co-work space in the building. The real wild card is the loading bay, which faces American Avenue. Lots we could do there, but we don't have any firm plans as far as who's going to occupy. And some of that is a result of these other properties that we have in the building. We have potential uses and tenants. We haven't paired them up with the right space. We have also done, and we submitted with our application in the supplemental materials, a marketing study that we had a firm called GAR Associates do about 3 years ago. To support to test our theory that these apartments would be rentable. And it was a favorable report. I don't know how that information, we have submitted it. I don't know how to disseminate it to the committee. I assume that will be done when the time is right.
We can submit the supplemental information to the committee. Thank you, Adam. So my question was about the residential apartments. Is it going to be mostly studios and 1 bedrooms, or a mix of
1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms.
1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms? And do you guys have
24 units, 8 units per floor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna switch and go forward for some of the other project sponsors that I know are here in the room, so they have a chance, just because we are running very short on time. So the next project that we have is the rehab of 1 to 3 South Broad Street. So the same project scope as we presented at the last meeting. This is a big project, includes the renovation of the entire building, ground floor commercial space, as well as office spaces, a bed and breakfast unit, and a formal event space to really support the existing business that is there. So this project cost has increased a little bit since the last meeting. So before we were around $600,000 total project cost. Our team has looked at these numbers and has made suggestions that the total project cost should increase to $1.6 million. And the DRI funding request is $640,000, which is the 40% request. William, I see you're in the room. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Check 1, 2, big fancy mic test. All right. Thank you for your time and energy. I know this can draw on, so thank you very much. First things first, the cost of this is something that really I just learned about. We budgeted, like she said, for like 600, and it's been increased by like $1 million. So that's something we learned about last Friday. So we'll go through this anyway. All right. So this project actually started in 2019. 2 separate buildings. They're sharing a common stairwell that accesses both buildings. So even though it's 2 buildings, it does function wonderfully as one unit altogether. Unit really has 8 spaces. They're a little over 1,000 square foot each. 2 event spaces, 1 formal lounge. We like to have ADA access ramps on both commercial levels for everyone. There are some ramps now, but they're not great. The space can host, let's see, 2 event spaces on the ground floor. Second floor, we can host 4 to 8 executive spaces, depending on how you want to dice it up. Some of the rooms are large, like I said, they're over 1,000 square feet. So without providing a tangible wall, we can still utilize those for more than one professional if we wanted to. We're going to have 1 grand suite, B&B style. That's going to be a little over 2,000 square feet. It has the potential to be offered as a duplex. That shares the 2nd and 3rd floors of 3 South Broad Street. And that was originally connected as a duplex, speaking as of the past, I don't know about the past 100 years, but we did discover where a stairwell used to go through and join the 2 floors. So we'd like to reopen that and reestablish that as part of the original space. The 3rd floors have the second part of that large rental, and it also has about 1,000 square feet event space or formal space. It has 180 degrees visibility and overlooks the east and west parks, as well as the premier businesses and buildings and the courthouse in the city. In my opinion, it's the nicest view that you can get from inside the building within anywhere of the city, and it does highlight all of the special features of the city, as well as like the whole DRI. So it's a wonderful spot, not only to host an event or to be, but it's also, it highlights the rest of the city for being inside of it. So currently that unit houses the historical clock that is also on the corner. So we would like to make that a little bit more visible while still protecting it and keeping it obviously safe. We'd like to make that a highlight piece of the building and the room from the inside, just like it is from the outside. It's not super complicated in there, but it's pretty cool looking. And as far as the other things and historical pieces with the building, we'd like to build them into the actual project themselves. When we did some renovations of the basements a year ago, we discovered 150 years worth of history from Norwich, whether it's old Buster Brown shoe signs, old pieces from the drugstores that used to be there. So we'd like to incorporate those into the design as well. This place can house locals as well as out-of-towners looking to make a little bit more of a premier space. It will work perfectly with our already established business. This will be a separate entity, but it will work wonderfully with our event business, Live Event New York. Currently, every year we have a plethora of people asking us where they can stay. So it sounds like we have a lot of good projects in the making, but let's contribute one more. So this place has event spaces and spaces for professionals to stay. Like I said, we have those requests every year. We're just not able to provide them ourselves. So we have a tentative interest in that already 2 years in a row. So what we've done already for the building, we're updating all of the electric, cleaned everything out. We made sure that everything was structurally checked and it's good. We're working directly with NYSEG to update not just our building, but the entire corner of the city block there. We're working with Mr. Hayes and their family to update everything. Currently, it's in need of updating, let's just say that. So that's something that we're paying for out of pocket, and it probably is going to be done by the time this rolls around.
Thank you, Rob.
We're ready to get started anytime.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Will regarding this project?
There's currently not an elevator, and it wasn't in the original proposal. But that's something I would actually be interested in doing. And since things have changed so dramatically, I'm open to the input of committee as well. Like I said, they elevated this quite a bit. So we do have a partial commitment already financially. And since we just learned about this 4 days ago, we got some private interest as well, and we're exploring new avenues for that as well. So I'd love to talk about that.
Thank you.
So while it is its own entity, yes, I would very much like to make it a highlight of the city. It's a cornerstone building in many ways, and I would love to make it sort of the cherry on top. I heard crown jewel mentioned once. That's kind of a nice term, but it is a wonderful premier historical spot in the city, and I would very much like to make it stand out as such.
Any questions for us? We do have, thank you, I appreciate it. We do have one other project that I know a project sponsor is here to speak about, and this is the rehab of 15 to 19 Lackawanna Avenue. And this is proposed by Hayworth Management, and I do see Adam in the back here with us today. So Adam, would you like to come up and say a few words? The only change to this project is our team did look at the cost estimate for this as well, and we did add some contingency costs. So this has increased a little bit to $350,000 with the DRI request of $100,000.
Hi, I'm Adam. Chris brought up our 13 to 15 project. Thanks for doing that, Chris. Yes. So yeah, these are our 3 very ugly buildings that we've owned for quite some time now. We've been working on it. It's been an active project going on for almost 10 years. This is what we call our phase 2. That would adjust the outside exterior. Middle building, we've actually just finished a project in there that I'm building for a second space for our bar. On the top of the 2 buildings on your right are undeveloped. Middle building, we see 2 apartments. Building all the way to your right would be an office for us. First floor of the building on the right would come door.
I'd like to add that the building on the end, which is 19 Lackawanna Ave, is a complete shell. It's been, there's no heating, plumbing, electrical. It's been a shell for years. It was part of the Ellenwood building when that was still in business. It was just used for storage. There's currently no way to the second floor because that was in the building that was torn down for the YMCA parking lot. So we also have to include a stairwell to the second floor as part of the project.
These buildings were dug to be a parking lot for many years. We brought it back, got the business going, creating good retail sales tax dollars for the community. You see this expansion growing our sales tax revenue 15 to 20%. Private financing is in place, ready to go. And yeah, just waiting on the side if we're going to move forward with the DRI, which we would like to help expand the project even more.
Any questions for Adam? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, so I know we are over our time limit for today's meeting, but we do just have, most of the other projects have not changed since our last meeting, but we do have one project scope change from last time we met. And this is improvements to the McLaughlin building at the corner of Broad Street and American Avenue. So before, this project was proposed by John Antonowitz, and it did include the idea for a chair museum in addition to an ice cream parlor and a bar, some facade improvements as well. So our team did look at the cost estimate that he put together, and we just made some recommendations in terms of the total project cost and we determined that that total project cost for all of the improvements that were proposed were around $2 million. So we did go back to John, and we had some detailed discussions about what he would like to do in terms of requesting the full amount of the 2 million or changing the scope of the project. So we did agree that just because John doesn't want to take up too much funding for the pot of $10 million, that he would like to cut back down the scope for the DRI project request to just include facade improvements. So including an exterior entrance on American Ave, which he believes would be a complementary improvement if the American Avenue streetscape enhancements were also implemented and recommended for funding. But really just scaling down to the ice cream parlor, facade improvements, and really just making this a place where both residents and visitors can go. And then all is not lost in regards to the Chair Museum. John would like to implement the Chair Museum as a second phase of this entire project. So as the project stands today, the total project cost for the ice cream parlor and the renovations that I just went through are $800,000 with a DRI request of also $800,000. Any questions regarding the changes to this project? Becky?
How is this fully funded in the next round?
Well, the ice cream parlor is kind of your generic name that the project's given. So there is someone who's interested in running a restaurant there. Part of the problem with the building is that whole building has one bathroom, which you wouldn't think is such a big building. It's on the 3rd floor. So a lot of the scope is, if the American Avenue project is funded, opening up that side, so there's windows, you have a place to eat downtown. So it's really not an ice cream parlor. An ice cream parlor is not going to do well in January in Norwich. So closing off the 1st floor into 2 sections, getting the plumbing, the electrical, and those kind of fixtures, the entranceways up to speed. There is about $200,000 of contingency in this project, just to point that out, because of some of the unknowns. Chair idea, which I've discussed, for various reasons. I feel there are other pots of money. I feel pretty confident we're working with Bergman. There are funding opportunities for that wouldn't drain on the DRI, because then you do have to go through that whole bidding process, and there are things that could be done that you could save a lot of money on by not doing it.
One more question. Who owns the building? Are you an investor or are you?
I'm not. Does that work? I'm not an investor. Adam Spence does own the building. There is no use for it currently. It does tie into that whole American Ave corridor. So I approached Adam on my own project. It is an LLC. Adam's telling me it's not Adam. He's one of them.
Well, I think in terms of the total project DRI request, that would be going to John's nonprofit agency, not Adam's
Correct.
ownership of the building.
So the money would go into the not-for-profit that preliminary talks on what we have been discussed. And some of the funding that development makes would then be to use to make this space for the community.
I'm just trying to grasp, so forgive me, how is it a non-profit in terms of the restaurant? I know we're doing like ice cream parlor, food, and plan together, but how is it not for the restaurant versus the other restaurants?
Right.
Sorry.
So it's very common for museums to have a component for food and that kind of stuff. So the restaurant itself would be owned by the Chair Society to offset the expenses. The Chair Society would pay somebody to run that part of the business. The Chair Society would own it. Yes. Yeah. Right.
Any other questions? So the other projects that we have listed, including red roof improvements, Eat Center upgrades, the signage and wayfinding and small project grant fund, have not changed since our last meeting, and I know we're running overtime. I don't know if anybody has any immediate questions that they have regarding those projects that our team can answer. So we'll kind of just freeze by these, and then open it up or just explain next steps. So after this meeting and after we do our interactive activity, which I think will be really fun for the LPC to participate in, our team will be compiling all of the results from the activity, both of the LPC and the public meeting that is happening later tonight. And we will be determining which projects come up as a priority for the LPC and the community and which ones sort of fall to the bottom of the list. And I think that at our next meeting, it will help the LPC really drill down this list in terms of recommending which projects should be included in that strategic investment plan. But between this meeting and when we meet next in June, our team will be hard at work, really developing and fleshing out all of the projects that we have presented for the last few meetings. So prior to our June meeting, it is our hope that we would be able to provide the LPC with a full project profile that really details out the scopes of these projects, the capacity of each project sponsor to implement the project, a detailed description of the cost estimates, timeline, and justification for the project. So I think that what I want everyone to do tonight in terms of the meeting and the activity is to really just decide which projects you think really fit into the overall goals of the DRI in terms of the state's DRI goals, as well as the vision and goals that we have set forth specific to downtown Norwich. And which projects do you think will result in the most community benefit for your community? In terms of engagement, so we are doing the public workshop following this meeting. And then, as I mentioned, we will be meeting June 14th at 3 p.m. And you can decide whether that meeting is in person or virtual. Just because we are running a little bit short on time, we are going to also be doing a public workshop immediately following this meeting. I am inclined to skip past the public comment period. If anyone really does have a comment that they would like to come up to the podium and speak, you may do so now. And I would just say, we do just have some ground rules for the public comment period, being just state your name and affiliation, and you're also limited to 3 minutes. Does anyone have any comments?
I just have a question about parking for the residents who will be living in the town. I know Hickory Street parking lot, I only have 4 units there residential, but that could be 5 or 6 cars. I mean, that's 7 spaces. Will we have designated residential parking to accommodate all of these residential units?
Thank you. We will take your comments and we will respond after the meeting. Thank you so much. Any other comments from the public? Okay, so this is the fun part of the meeting, and I know everyone is super hot and ready to get out of here probably, but I think this exercise is really important. So we would like you to all tell us how you would spend your $10 million. So along the windows of the room, we do have boards set up, there's 2 projects per board, and we will be handing out, if you might just start handing out. We'll be handing out packets of $10 million to everyone. So we want you to spend your $10 million by placing your money in the bags that we have on the side of the room here. So, yes.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
On the sheets that we had to review, we've got the small project grant fund.
That's correct.
So how is that going to play in if there are projects that could be allocated into that funding stream? Is that possible?
It is, and if you remember at our previous meeting, there were some smaller projects that we did take off as recommended projects because we felt as though they could support the small project grant fund. So the small project grant fund, if it was recommended by the LPC, and typically every community that has gone through the DRI process does end up including a small project grant fund. Basically what happens is that $600,000 will be funded and a separate application process that would be administered by the Development Shenango Corporation would take place. So whether it be people that have previously applied to the DRI program or other applicants that are interested in funding their small projects within the DRI area would be able to apply through another process after this DRI process is complete.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Yes, okay. So in terms of any more questions about the projects themselves? All right, so in terms of the activity, so we are handing out the $10 million bundles of money. So you'll see on the board, there's a DRI request, and we did have to round up all the numbers for the DRI request to make them divisible by the increments that we are giving you. But you'll see on the board a description of the project and a you pay amount in a big circle. So if that is a project that you would like to see funded, you would put your money in the bag for that project. Now, you're also able to vote for a project if you like it, but you may also change the DRI request that is proposed. So for example, if there is a project that is requesting $1 million of DRI funding, you might say, hey, I really like this project, but I only want to fund $500,000 of it. So what you would do in that case is take a sticky note that we are giving you, write the amount that you would like to fund and put it in the bag. And our team will be able to count up all the money at the end of this process and figure out how many votes were cast for each project and the DRI request that is recommended by each member.
Sam, it's Julie.
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick comment on making changes, specifically reductions to amounts that are proposed. Just keep in mind that you always want to consider, will the project still be viable? Obviously, there are some that have different options, so they might lend themselves to that or phases, but and this holds as well for when you get into further discussion on these projects. So you are looking at reductions that take into consideration what that would be to the overall viability of that project.
That's also a good note that following this meeting and subsequent LPC meetings, we can discuss as a group if there is a minimum or maximum outside of the DRI requirements that the LPC would like to set for various types of projects or privately versus publicly sponsored projects. So the DRI minimum funding request for private projects by the program is 40%, but maybe the committee would like to maybe have a 30% match from the DRI. That is something we can discuss at subsequent meetings as a group, and we can determine how that plays out from here. But with that, does anyone have any questions on the activity itself?
And if
before I let you all go?
Yes. If anyone doesn't have $10 million, then let me know. Our bankers did a bad job and I can give you $10 million.
We can also, if you really need change, like if you only have $1 million bill left and you want to split it up into smaller increments, we do have change that we can give you as well. But in terms of the meeting, I really appreciate everyone's time. I really appreciate all the project sponsors that came into the room today to speak about their projects. I think it was a very good discussion. So if you want to hang around for the public meeting in an hour, please feel free to do so. And I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
So,
I appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. How are you?
Question. Do anyone still need to hear?